I don't give a fuck about lesbians or see us as human or people worthy of protection or respect because everyone thinks that there has to be a man involved at all times. And when there's not, people freak out and get really weird. When you fantasize openly about doing something to someone who, by definition, would never consent to sleeping with you, yes, that is fantasizing about SA. Yes, that is fantasizing about rape. That is extremely predatory, but you guys don't give a fuck about us, and you think everybody has to like what I like. Everyone has to like what comes with being with a cis man. So how can it be that bad, or how can it be that serious? Because they're just talking about women. They're just talking about women. Whether these women are attracted to them or not, they don't care. Whether these women would consent to them or not, which we all know they wouldn't, they don't care. It's just no one sees what we go through as valid because we don't want a man involved. We don't want a penis involved. And people use that. But that is the whole concept of around corrective rape. That is the entire concept. Knowing that someone doesn't like a specific body part or a specific act and trying to fix them or correct them. This is something that has gone on for so long, and it's happening everywhere. And people don't give a fuck because it's happening to lesbians. If it was happening to anyone else, people would be like, what the fuck? We need to look into this. We need to put a stop to this. We need to fight against this. We need to speak out about it. But because it's lesbians, the only ones who are not trying to get men and are completely, by definition, completely unavailable to them, who cares? Throw us to the fucking wolves. People can say whatever they want in the stupid songs. They can make jokes. They can say all kinds of disgusting, sick shit. And the reason why I didn't post or say any of the lyrics is because I don't feel like censoring all of them. I just don't feel like censoring all of them. And I wasn't trying to be funny or trying to like start drama or anything. I'm genuinely appalled because I really did enjoy listening to his music, and I really did, more than anything, I liked him as a person, or whoever I thought he was as a person. So of course it's disappointing, but a man being misogynistic and predatory is never a surprise to me. It's just like, oh, further confirmation. It's really disgusting. But yeah, do not try to gaslight lesbians about how we should feel in a world that dehumanizes us every fucking chance they get, even fellow queer people. But yeah. You want to be remembered a certain way, then you need to act that way while you're alive. Because a lot of people, they like to pretend that everyone was a really great person once they pass away in order to respect the dead. But I feel like how you lived your life, that is your legacy, not just the good shit, but everything that you did. And I am not going to sit here and act like you were a better person than you were because you're dead, or I'm not going to not acknowledge your mistakes just because you're dead. All you did was die. Like, you're not the second coming of Jesus because you died. Everybody dies. We don't suddenly get this like moral palate cleanse just because we are deceased. Whoever you decided to be, whatever choices you decided to make, those choices are your legacy. Everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. So when we talk about musicians, comedians, whoever, when they die, they don't suddenly become these fucking gods. They don't. Everything that they chose to do while they were here, that is what they chose to do. And it is perfectly fine to acknowledge those things, just like it's perfectly fine to acknowledge the good things, because people are complex. They're not just one or the other. But you guys expect people to completely ignore all the bad stuff in order to respect them. But that is not the full picture of who they are or who they were. They did bad shit too. And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging it so that people now don't make those same mistakes and can realize like, hey, that was fucked up. No one cares about canceling dead people or anything like that. They're dead. Who cares? But we can learn from their mistakes and we can do better as a society. A lot of people haven't caught on to the fact that a lot of the time, leftist men, progressive men, feminist men, whatever you want to call it, the things that they care about the most are somehow the things that get them more access to women and more access to media that is exploitative to women, all those kind of things. I never see them talking about things that don't benefit them to some extent. Like, they're never talking about FGM. They're never talking about things that don't somehow benefit them in the end, that don't somehow make them feel more comfortable in their depravity. Literally, so much of modern feminism is making men feel more comfortable and has very little to do with actually fighting for female liberation. It's so disgusting. And so much of it is aimed at getting men to see us as people instead of focusing on fighting for our rights and what we need and things that don't benefit men. And so it's very weird because it's about this illusion of choice instead of examining what that actually entails and what the implications of it are. But I don't care. I can be called everything under the sun. I will never, ever, ever feel bad, especially when you look up one of the most popular website, how they had to have millions and millions of their videos removed because their videos were actually people being raped. And I actually choose to listen to S workers that have experiences that are not going to make me feel the best. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to make me feel like this is like this rainbows and butterflies thing. I listen to the ones who say they didn't feel comfortable with saying no on the set, or that they were coerced into certain things, or that it took a very, very big toll on their mental health, even though it was something that they chose. I listen to those stories, and not only the ones that make me feel comfortable. I listen to all of it. And if it's harmful to even a few women, I think that's enough for it to be like done away with. But that's just me. When you guys get on here and you use your nostalgia and your childhood stuff in order to make yourselves feel better about mourning an abuser and using it to tear other people down because they're not mourning said abuser, I want you to remember that Maya Henry, the girl, the woman that was abused by him, was also a fan. She also had a nostalgic childhood attached to this man. She was a huge fangirl. I want you to remember this picture that I'm about to show you. I want you to remember that she was a teenage girl, completely obsessed and in love with One Direction, just like you were. I want you to remember that Liam himself told her that he was using his influence and his power and the fact that his fans will defend him no matter what in order to take advantage of them. I want you to think about this picture and the fact that she was a fan who had childhood nostalgia too. I want you to think about the fact that she went to the meet and greets and she was excited about them and she experienced all that nostalgia with us. She was literally one of us. I want you to remember that. I want you to really get that through your thick ass skull. She was one of us. She was literally one of us. So when you get on the platforms and you say, oh, it's my childhood nostalgia, I don't know how you can like say all this stuff. I want you to remember that he did this to someone that was literally one of us. He did not respect his fans. He took advantage of his fans, and he even told her he knew that his fans would defend him no matter what. And he took that and he ran with it and he used it so that he could get pictures, so that he could get sexual whatever from them. He used that to his advantage and he abused this woman. So I need you to remember that when you try to use your childhood nostalgia and place that over her humanity and her right to tell her story and people's right to be happy that he can no longer cause harm. You guys are selfish. Nobody cares that when you were 12 years old, you used to dance to one thing. Nobody gives a fuck about that. We are happy that an abuser can no longer cause harm, and there is nothing wrong with that. We were all there when One Direction were the biggest thing in the entire world. We were all there. We remember What Makes You Beautiful. We remember Night Changes. We remember Story of My Life. We remember all of it. Trust me. All of us were the people that mixed together their fucking last names. We were all fucking there, but so was she. So was she, and he didn't give a fuck about that. He didn't give a fuck about the other girl whose DMs that he slid into, all of the other women. He didn't care. He didn't care. So any normal person is going to gather that information and say, hey, it was a beautiful time in my life, but this person that I had this parasocial connection with, regardless of how long it's been, he is fucking terrible, and he doesn't respect me as a fan. He doesn't respect these other people as fans. So good fucking riddance. And you don't have to be dancing about it like I am. You don't have to act like your nostalgia should come before the fact that he can no longer harm people. You guys are disgusting. You guys are absolutely disgusting. You're selfish. And you're not a child anymore. Your childhood has been long gone. People are like, oh, I'm mourning my childhood. Your childhood has been gone for like 10 fucking years. Grow up. Literally grow the fuck up. You have not been a teenager obsessing over One Direction in so fucking long. They have been broken up for over 10 fucking years. It's done. It's done. It's been fucking done. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done. I don't know how else to tell you, but that shit has been done. It has been a long fucking gone. They were never going to come back, by the way. They were never going to come back. And if they did, it was never going to look the way that it did in the past where they pretended to like each other more than they did. None of that. It was never going to fucking happen. Your childhood has been fucking done. Grow the fuck up and stop having more empathy and more care for yourself and abusers than you do for the people that they victimize. Grow the fuck up. I see where myself and y'all have a disconnect because y'all don't really hate abusers. Y'all hate them in like a no, stop, please don't do that again type of way. But I hate them in a way that's like, I want you gone from the earth in the most painful way possible, especially when it's men in Hollywood because they have the resources and the connections to continue their abuse across generations. So, no, you getting rehabilitated or any of that bullshit is not enough. I need you to stop breathing. People are so weird about that movie Precious in a way that they definitely wouldn't be if it was about like a thin white woman. And we don't talk about that enough. She was being sexually abused by her mother and her father, and her father impregnated her twice. And she also dies at the end of the fucking movie, but it's like the funniest thing in the world. The jokes never end. All over the internet, all like even in real life too, when it's actually one of the most like tragic, disgusting, disturbing movies to ever be made, but because it's about a fat, black, and also dark skinned woman, it's like it's just a joke, and all anyone took from it is like, ha ha ha, she's fat. It truly is a commentary on how we see people in bigger bodies as less deserving of empathy and humanity and autonomy and all of those things. It also just speaks to how unprotected Black women and girls are, and how people don't take our pain seriously and don't value Black women and Black girls, and don't see us as worthy of protection, and don't see us as innocent in any circumstances. There's always something that we did to bring about terrible abusive behavior. There's always something we could have done. We're never seen as the victim or the innocent party. It's always something that we did. It's always something we did to deserve it. It's really, really disgusting. And it's just, when you speak about characters like that and you don't give them humanity, it also speaks to how you see dark-skinned women and fat women and young girls in general. It's really disgusting, and it's not funny at all. That movie is actually really fucking tragic. Collectively share one brain cell in here, so let me pop up the statement for you. You can read it yourself if you would like, but she was wrongfully accused. Her ex herself said it herself, and they are still good friends to this day. So I don't know what idiot on TikTok told you that, but it was bullshit, and you're not very smart for not even verifying the information, because she has never said that Amber abused her. She's never said those words. This is all she has ever said about that incident. And also, the incident only became public because when Amber got her restraining order against Johnny when she divorced him, he put the story out into the press because he was starting up the hate campaign that a bunch of idiots, including you, fell for. The more you fucking know. I need you guys to really educate yourselves and know what the fuck you're talking about so that this never happens to another woman again, because it's fucking disgusting. And how confidently you guys say things that you never bothered to verify is frankly really scary. You'll see a clip on TikTok and you'll see like these body language analysts or whatever say stuff, and you're like, oh, that must be fact, instead of actually looking through court documents. If you don't care to do that, don't care enough to have an opinion. I have to go real fucking mute when y'all be like, oh, I'm gonna fuck his friend or I'm gonna fuck his father as revenge, because it's like, ooh, you fucked his friend, you fucked his father, you fucked somebody else that is connected to him. You really showed him. Now they're just gonna be laughing at your dumbass. What's the point? Quick question for the girls. When the fuck does it end? When the fuck does the performance end? When do we go home? When do we take our fucking bow and walk off the fucking stage? Like, I do not like being a woman today. I don't like it. I don't like it. Like, I don't like it. I don't like it. It feels like this performance piece that I don't get to consent to. Like, I'm just constantly like performing, and it's like this voice that's in my head that is not mine. Like, I don't think those things. I don't think that that matters. Like, I know that being as feminine as possible or being sexy or whatever, like, those are not important things. Those are not important things. There's so many other amazing things about me. That is just a coincidence. But the fact, it's like like I can be alone in my room, no one, windows completely covered, everything, and I'm just like, it's always a performance. Like, do I look hot right now? How am I being perceived right now? No one is here. Why do you care? Like, it's just, it never ends. It never ends. It never ends. I'm gonna read you this quote because I was having a feeling, and I like tried to find someone who has like put this into words. I couldn't find like the actual author, but I found this quote. Performance art is what a woman knows best. Every time we blush, our cheeks, or moan through our pain, we perform something pretty. I separate myself into fragments of a person until I lose sight of who I am. I perform for no one and everyone in my room, on the floor, in your head, and mine. When the lights go out, who am I? This is a question that has tormented thousands upon thousands of women before me. When we're not dancing to someone's tune or sugaring our words but never our tongues, who are we? One day I play the part of a woman who is capable of being loved. The next day I retreat into my mind. Who will I be when the curtains close?
who would want to watch? It's like, it just feels like such a performance. And that's why, like, sometimes I just have days where I'm like, I hate womanhood. I hate it so much. And it's not in the way of like, I wish that I was a man. I just wish that womanhood didn't come with what it comes with, like that just performing. And it's like, even when you feel like you're not doing something out of performance, or you're not performing femininity, or you're not performing what someone's idea of womanhood is, you're still performing it in some type of way. And like, you're just so aware of like the audience. And it's like, when did I sign up for this? It's so annoying. It's so annoying. Like, I just hate society. I hate the way that we have created gender and like all these different ideas. I hate masculinity, femininity. Like, that shit is fucking made up. None of those things come with being a woman or being a man. It's just like, we are just born into bodies, but we've given so many meanings to things that are literally genderless. Like, I hate it so much. I hate it so fucking much. Oh my God. I hate it so much. And it's like, I feel like if I had a different relationship with gender, maybe I would be like non-binary or something. But my relationship with it is like, I was born in this body. It means nothing except for I was born in this body. What I like, what I think, how I choose to present has nothing to do with that. It's just, it comes down to like socialization and maybe even a little bit of what I like myself. But also, it's so hard to know what you actually like yourself as a woman, because it's like the socialization is so powerful. So it's like, do I like that because I like that? Or do I like that because the patriarchy told me that that's desirability? I don't know, but it's annoying. When the fuck does the performance end? Also, I can't stand how y'all frame femininity as this like gift that men give women when they're decent to them and treat them like a partner should treat their partner. Like, oh, he lets her be in her feminine energy. Blah, blah, blah. No. It's so fucking corny. They expect femininity from us. It's this fucking performance that they expect us to put on 24/7, even after we've just had their kids, even after we have been through traumatic situations. Like, they always expect that from us. How is it like this gift that they give you because they decide to be like a decent partner to you? Like, you guys are so weird. So weird. Actually, feminism is not about the right to choose to be a man's servant. It has nothing to do with that. It's about being liberated from your oppressor. If you want to choose to be oppressed, that's on you, but it's not a feminist choice. The choice that a woman makes is not inherently feminist. And if it has nothing to do with liberating her from the patriarchy and from her oppressors, it has nothing to do with feminism. Like, if you want to be in a cage, then that's your choice, sure, but it has nothing to do with feminism, because feminists did not fight for the right for you to continue to be their slaves, to be their fucking caregivers. They didn't fight for that. That is not the goal of feminism. For liberation of women collectively, not so that you can choose to be beneath a man for the rest of your life. If that's what you want, good for you, but that is not what feminism aims to achieve by any fucking means. It's not about individualistic choices. It's about women in general having the freedom to be entire human beings with autonomy and options and choices that have nothing to do with catering to the patriarchy, by the way. If your choices serve the patriarchy, or they are what is expected from you by your oppressors, it has nothing to do with feminism. You just like being in a cage. You want to be the patriarchy's prettiest princess, leave feminists out of that. Leave feminists out of that, because women were not going on hunger strikes, getting murdered, going to jail, experiencing all these terrible things so that you can choose to be a man's servant. They did not fight for that. They didn't fight for that. You are okay with your own subjugation, your own loss of autonomy, your own loss of individuality. That is up to you. But it is not a feminist choice. It has nothing to do with feminists. And frankly, it's disrespectful to claim that it has anything to do with feminists and what they fought for. They didn't fight for you to continue to be in a cage. They didn't fight for you to choose to do things that only benefit men and keep you beneath them. They didn't make those sacrifices so that you could do that. When you fix your mouth to claim that something is empowering, let's ask ourselves, does it benefit men? Is this something that women are expected to do? Is this expected from men? Something that puts my physical, mental, whatever health in danger? Or does that happen to other women? Does it actually give women systemic economical power? Or is it just something that fulfills an individualistic desire that I have? Am I confusing personal enjoyment with empowerment?
because those are two very different things. If you like it and what makes you feel powerful is having a man's validation, if that is what power means to you, if that's what liberation means to you, go for it. If giving a man access to your body and those things like that are empowering to you, great. But that has nothing to do with actual female empowerment. Nothing. Literally nothing. Y'all to really, really grasp this. Every single choice that a woman makes is not a feminist choice. It does not have anything to do with female empowerment. If it is not challenging the patriarchy, it has nothing to do with feminism. It has nothing to do with it. Leave the feminists out of it. If you want to be the patriarchy's princess, if you want to make yourself feel like it's a choice to be a man's servant or to perform femininity for them, keep that shit between you and yourself. Keep that between you and your desires. Don't try to make it about feminism, because it's not.
Listen, nobody is going to ruin your life worse than a person who doesn't know how to protect their own energy. It's really important to know how to spot these people, so let me help you out. Now, the first thing you need to watch out for is actually yourself. So if you are somebody that's had abuse in the past, or you are maybe in a vulnerable place right now, maybe something bad has happened in your life, like you're just on shaky ground, and you're really desperate for some kind of connection, like friendship, romantic, doesn't matter. That's the number one warning sign, because these people prey on others that they perceive as weak. So the first place you need to look is inward, and you need to make sure to be protecting your space and your energy. If you have abuse in your past, trauma in your past, or if you're going through something at the moment, just be really careful of people who want to come into your life for any reason. The second warning sign is going to be that you hit it off with this person, like instantaneously, like really strong connection. You guys like have shared your life story, you know where they were born, you know who their mom is, who their dad is. You told them a few things about yourself, and you're feeling pretty good. You're like, wow, like maybe I wouldn't have done all this or like shared all this with somebody right away, but like I'm so glad that they trust me. They seem like a really good person. It just seems like we're building a strong friendship here. So this is actually called love bombing, and men and women do this. Like, you're not safe from this just because the person that is like pouring their heart out to you is a woman. That does not mean that she's not going to do you dirty, or worse, just put you in a really dangerous position, because that's what she thrives off of. People who don't know how to protect their energy, they always end up in situations where somebody could be hurt or put in danger because they're not protecting their energy. Love bombing someone is a surefire sign that somebody doesn't respect their own energy reserve or the other person's boundaries, right? There's a reason why this works especially well on like people with trauma or people that are in a vulnerable spot, because people like that are typically seeking like a deep connection with someone, and love bombing, especially in the form of like oversharing, can really mimic a deep connection instantaneously without either person having to put in the real work of what it takes to build a friendship, you know, like things that are built over time. And these people have figured out that they don't have to do any of the work. This is like the easiest way, you know, to arm your way into somebody's life without having any of that social capital that we are actually after as people. It's like one thing to meet somebody, get along really well, things click, the conversation's flowing, right? That's very different than meeting someone and all of a sudden you know their life story. All of a sudden they've told you every bad thing that's ever happened to them. All of a sudden, and you feel very compelled to help this person. And that's because they came to you with an equivalent of like an open wound out of nowhere on like a Tuesday night. And your human nature, your human instinct is to help. And this first step really goes a long way for most people. Now, the next thing that these people will do, again, whether this be a man or a woman, is they're going to get you to owe them something. So they're going to come through for you in a big way. Probably in a way that you didn't ask, probably in a way that you wouldn't have even preferred, but they don't care. The point is, you're going to do something for you that's going to allow them to dangle that thing in front of you for the rest of your relationship. Usually without you asking, usually be some kind of grand gesture that's not really like personal to you or not really like customized to you, but it'll be a grand gesture nonetheless. You're going to think like, oh, this is so sweet. This is so kind. Like, I'm so lucky to have met them. I'm lucky to have them. And they're going to be happy because they've really sunk their hooks in now. And now they know you owe them a big one. Now they know they've like come through for you. And basically this is where they're going to kick their feet up and they're going to start crossing boundaries. So these people, once they've done these two things, this is usually enough to keep people on the hook for a very long time. Some of us are extremely prone and susceptible to this because we have been abused in the past. So we view these extreme gestures as like normal. We view love bombing as normal, as like a part of a relationship. We view oversharing as normal. We view, you know, these like flash in a pan connections as like the real thing when oftentimes they're not. I'll explain why that is later on. Just to emphasize, the grand gestures don't actually have to be grand. They just have to be like not like commissioned, right? So these will be like little gifts that they get you out of nowhere. Hey, you know, I've had this for a long time and like I don't want it, but like do you want it? And it's like some really cool expensive thing and you're like, oh my gosh, like really I can have this? And they're like, yeah, absolutely, for sure. And you're like, man, like, well, now I kind of owe them one. And that's the goal, right? You're kind of like, wow, like they've been so kind to me, so gracious to me, like we know so much about each other. And you begin to mistake that for the foundation of a friendship or a relationship. And step 3 is easy. They just kick their feet up, they let their hair down, and they let the crazy shine. So now that they've sort of locked you in as their energy source, they're ready to start feeding. What they've done with the first 2 steps is get you to let your guard down and to stop protecting your energy around them, because they have made you feel like you're very familiar, like you're very good friends, like it's a friendship that goes back 20 years even though you just met 2 weeks ago. It's a relationship that's going to last forever even though you just met 2 weeks ago. They're already talking about marriage and family and pets and where you guys are going to live, and you just met 2 weeks ago. That's because they want you to stop protecting your energy. And now that you've done that, they can kick their feet up and they can let loose. And now you're going to find out about all the problems they have. You're going to find out all the people that they owe money to. You're going to find out that they haven't been in touch with their family or friends in a long time. You're going to find out like all this crazy shit about their life. Like they're all of a sudden going to get fired from a job and like need to come stay at your place. The reason that I emphasize that this is dangerous and not just like a minor inconvenience is because there's like a little bit of like shock value with these kinds of, you know, friendships or relationships. For a long time, you'll be sequestered in like your own little world. You'll be isolated, where, you know, they're your best friend and you're their best friend and like all you guys do is hang out and like have fun and share details about your life. And then one day they're like, hey, can you help me with something? And the something turns out to be a drug dealer that they owe debts to, and you won't know it until the very last second. They'll be like, oh, hey, can you come help me move some stuff out of this house? And then it'll turn out you're actually stealing somebody else's furniture. You know, they'll be like, oh, hey, can you come with me to like confront a friend? And the friend is an abusive ex-boyfriend. They'll be like, oh, hey, can you come to this family thing? And then it turns out they don't get along with their family at all. And it's like a huge fiasco. And again, you just feel, at best, you feel extremely awkward and uncomfortable. At worst, you feel like you're in danger and you don't know what to do. And now like you need to call somebody to get you out of this situation. This is typically what these relationships devolve into. This 3rd step is really important because that's what it was all for, right? They've sort of locked you down emotionally, then they lock you down physically, right? By offering you gifts or offering, you know, acts of service. The biggest point is that this wouldn't have worked without those first 2 steps. So if you hadn't fallen for the love bombing, and if you hadn't accepted, you know, favors from them that made you feel uncomfortable or favors that were like way over the top, this wouldn't have worked. But now you sort of feel stuck. Now it would be like really shitty of me, you know, to not help this person out, to not like put myself on the line for them, because, you know, I did accept their gifts and I did accept, you know, sort of their love bombing and all this stuff. So I guess I'm sort of on the hook now for this friendship. I'm on the hook for this relationship. And those things were the bait that you took. Now you're stuck until you discard them or they discard you. Basically the cycle. And after the discard, mind you, the reason I say cycle is because after the discard, they love to come back around and start to love bomb you again. They love to come back around and, you know, hold those favors that they did for you over your head. They love to come back and still try and get a little something more out of you. And that's why this is so, so dangerous. It ultimately gives a person access to you that they can come back and like reopen that door whenever. They're a black hole either way, right? Were they to protect their energy, it wouldn't matter. Were they to be mindful of other people's energy, it wouldn't matter. They would feel unsatisfied. These people that I'm talking about have names for this in like modern psychology, right? You have narcissist, sociopath, psychopath, etc. These are just people that are born without any inner energy. They're born without a source of inner energy. That's the best way to sort of like describe it visually. I'm not saying that there isn't a mental health component to this. There absolutely is. This is just how you need to picture it in order to move through life and be able to avoid these situations. You need to realize that these people are not their own energy source like you are. The thing with an energy source is that it's finite. The reason that people eventually start learning to protect their energy is because they start to realize that their energy is finite. A lot of times this realization happens after somebody's first like abusive relationship with one of these energy vampires, because they don't have energy of their own. So what they do is lock you in so that you become a source of energy for them. They get that energy by crossing your boundaries, by abusing you, by being mean to you, by cutting you down, by ruining your success. Like all of these things are like food to them. They cannot live without these things. And so you really can't fall for that initial love bombing stage, you're not used to putting up those sorts of boundaries. You need to learn. You need to start now saying things like, hey, this is really cool. I'm glad that we got a chance to chat, but some of the things that you're sharing with me right now are just making me a little bit uncomfortable. It's making me feel like I know you a little too well when we just met. And I would really prefer to keep that sort of discussion to like later on down the road in our friendship. Like, I'm not ready to share these things with you, and it makes me feel like I have to share these things with you because you're sharing something with me. Like, I'm just not comfortable with that. And you'll watch and see how these people will just disappear out of your life. They're not going to stick around long enough to have a healthy relationship pace with you. They will be turned off by this because you are what? Protecting your energy. Now, if somebody's trying to gift you something that you're just not comfortable with, it's okay to turn that gift down. It's okay to be like, hey, this is really sweet. I really appreciate it, but I just don't have like room or space for this, or like I just don't really need it, and I'd be a lot more comfortable if you kept it. If it's something like overly expensive or like overly nice, just be like, look, I'm really flattered, I'm really touched, but like I want to build a genuine friendship with you. It's not built on like obligation, and honestly I would just feel really obligated to you if I accepted this, and I'm sure you just wouldn't want me to feel like that. And I'm sure you wouldn't want me to feel like, you know, I owe you something, or like I have a debt that I can never make up to you because you've given me this like thing. You know, I'm just not comfortable. Like, thank you though, and I really appreciate you, and like just know that the kind gesture has not gone unnoticed. It's just we'll have to get to a place in our friendship where we're more comfortable doing things like this. Most importantly, like at the end of the day, you need to remember that the only people who don't care about protecting their energy are people who don't have any to give you. They are people that are going to eventually use you as an energy source. And the best thing that you can do is to start protecting your energy around them, because they also have no regard for that. Right? Especially during that love bombing stage, like they'll often overstay their welcome, or they'll be like, wow, you know, we have just talked for hours, like I could just keep going, and like I'm so excited, like whatever. Meanwhile, in your head, you're thinking like, wow, I'm actually really tired, I need to work tomorrow, like whatever. But they just seem like they're having so much fun, like I would feel bad. Like, yeah, that's because they don't care about your energy. And they don't care about protecting their energy, because where they get it from is like these over the top encounters. You know, they get off on just sitting there for 4, 6, 8 hours with a perfect stranger, just telling them their life story, telling them all these crazy things that they've been through. There's often a lot of humble bragging involved, like, oh, when I used to work here, or when I used to do this, or when I used to be friends with so and so, like, and all of that is designed to get you to think like, wow, this is such a cool person, they're spending so much time with me, like I should invest in this, right? They seem really invested. And it's like, yes, they're invested because they need a source. They need a source of life and energy, and that's you. You know what I mean? They wouldn't be invested if you had boundaries. They wouldn't be invested if you wanted to take things slow. They're only invested as long as you're willing to go at a breakneck speed down a road that you've never been down. And they get to drive the car. It's always going to be like that. They're always going to be like subtly in control. And the biggest sign that this is happening to you is that you feel drained after the hangout every time. Feel tired. And the first few times it's going to seem like a good kind of tired. You're going to be like, wow, like I got a lot off my chest, or like I, you know, had such a good time. Like I've never had anyone be like this open with me. This is so cool. This person seems so genuine. Like they have so much to share. They have so much to say. And then next thing you know, you're going to be caught in a cycle of like, oh God, here they go calling me again. Here they go wanting to hang out again. You're going to start feeling some type of way. They don't care to protect your energy because they don't care to protect theirs. The other thing is, because of this, because they're such an energy black hole, they also somehow have infinite amounts of energy to do this shit. Not like life force energy, but like the energy that it takes to suck energy out of somebody else. Like they have an infinite amount of that. But when they're not hanging out with you, they're hanging out with somebody else. They seem to have a lot of trouble spending time on their own. They seem to have a lot of trouble staying single. They have a lot of trouble regulating their own emotions, right? Anything happens, they pick up the phone and start calling people. They start calling you. They start calling everybody in their phone book. Like all of that is called being an energy vampire. And these are people that you need to stay away from if you value your time, your energy, and frankly, your life, like the quality of your life. You need to cut these people out of your life, or have a conversation with them or whatever, because as soon as you start trying to set boundaries, these people really will just take care of themselves. One thing they're not interested in is not being able to suck as much energy from you whenever they want to be able to do that. As soon as you start putting up boundaries and protecting your energy, they will all of a sudden be completely uninterested in dating you and in being friends with you. They will cut you out of their friend group, etc. It's not going to go much further than the initial stage of you saying like, hey, I need to sort of protect my time, protect my energy. I'm not comfortable with this. That's where it ends. So yeah, stay safe out there. Godspeed. I love you so much. We let men dictate a lot of what we consider to be the norm. And for men, friendships are very simple. very, very simple and largely like interest or proximity or structurally based. What I mean by that is men tend to meet and make their friends mostly based on proximity, right? People that they live next to, neighbors, interests, right? People that are interested in the same things as them. Structural, like meeting somebody at work or like you're on the same fantasy football team or like sports team. I'm not saying that can't be the case for women, but what I've noticed about women is that they don't necessarily need to have a whole lot in common. Like it helps, but it's almost like that's definitely not a deal breaker. Whereas men will be like, no, we don't have anything in common, therefore we have nothing to talk about. So friendships for men tend to, again, I'm not saying all men, like, please, just let's not do this. Friendships for men, a lot of men tend to be centered around like serving a basic need, or like it's centered around something else rather than centered on what exists between the two of you as people, right? Whereas women tend to have friendships that sort of grow in between them. And it's like, I'll add a little bit of my interests, a little bit of my hobbies, my life experience, my trauma. It's the same on the other side. And like, we're sort of cultivating a garden. Whereas like, it's kind of a crude analogy, but whereas most men are just standing around pissing on the same tree. Does that make sense? We have normalized that more than we have normalized growing a garden together. This can be difficult, right? Because what we normalize about friendships is they should be fun, easy. The things that you do with friends should somehow always accommodate all of you. Nothing that happens between friends should ever be a bummer, which is, again, very much how men operate in their friendships. There's always an activity that their friendships are centered around. There's not a lot of introspection or sharing of like feelings and emotions. They don't share trauma with each other, share concerns with each other. They have bro codes so that they don't have to, it's very specifically so that they don't have to address any sort of issues, so that their friendship is never a bummer. Everyone's just gonna sweep shit under the rug and call it a day. This is why they don't talk about feelings or like what's going on in their life. This is why they don't really seek advice from each other. That would involve complexity, which is where you sort of lose a lot of men because they're not encouraged to be emotionally complex creatures. And women very much are. We have very much normalized sort of a very male gazy friendship standard. We need to work on sort of deconstructing that if we want to have long-lasting and worthwhile friendships. We know now that it's women, because of sort of the complexity and the depth of their friendships, they actually tend to not really go through life alone. Even if they are unmarried, even if they're not involved in like any hobbies or sports or anything like that, they tend to have friends anyway. And this whole threat of like, if you don't get married, you're gonna die alone has been exposed as a projection, because that is the reality for men. Men will have friends their whole life. Those friendships are so shallow and so meaningless that most men still end up dying alone, not surrounded by friends. They don't have friends who visit them in hospice, who visit them on their deathbed. They don't have friends who, when they get sick or diagnosed with something, come over with meals, come over support, come over just to offer a listening ear and process their emotions about things. They don't have that. They rely very heavily on women for that. And in fact, a lot of women report that when they have a friend, a woman friend, who's married, who's going through something difficult like cancer or whatever, her husband will not do anything. And not only that, but when they come over to emotionally support the woman or to bring meals or whatever, it's typically the husband that takes advantage of that. They eat the meals, they demand that emotional support. You know, they'll stand there and dump all their feelings out on these women that they couldn't give less of a shit about this whole time that they were friends with their wife, but now all of a sudden she becomes a dumping ground for this man's trauma from his wife having cancer or a terminal disease. I've heard it said that like these men make women's friends so uncomfortable that it actually drives the friends away, or it just makes it really difficult for them to visit like meaningfully and provide meaningful support to the woman. And the sort of connective tissue that I want to think about here is why we have prioritized romantic relationships so far above friendships, especially as women, given that what we get out of friendships is so much more than we get out of these romantic relationships with men, because men are not taught to sort through complex emotions. They're not taught to sit there in discomfort, and most romantic relationships suffer because of that, or just have very little substance because of that, or mostly up to the woman maintain the emotional health of a romantic relationship. So when it comes to female friendships, this can be a little confusing, because it's kind of like, how am I supposed to navigate a relationship that is so much more complex than my relationship with my romantic partner? A lot of times this unfortunately gets chalked up to, oh, it's just too much drama and other women are too emotional and men are more straightforward and things like that. And all of that is very male-centered. Like, that means you have not decentered men in your life, because relationships are not always going to be easy or simple. a lot going on. And it takes a lot to navigate that. There's been a lot more attention brought to this now because we are decentering men as a society and because we are sort of decentering the easy way out. I love that for us. Just know that what that's going to mean for your friendships is sometimes they're going to be a little bit more complex. That doesn't mean that it's too much drama. That doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. That doesn't mean that a friendship is not worth having. It just means that the standards that have been set by our society are that for a shallow friendship, a shallow relationship, a fair weather friend, a very individualistic type setup that's again dictated by the way that men expect to be treated in our society, where everything is catered and custom to them and every game is rigged so that they can win it. And as a society, I'm thankful that we are decentering that and that we are seeing how shallow and fleeting and unhelpful that kind of outlook is. Relationships are woven together by their complexity and by sort of the difference in opinion or lifestyle or etc. Like there's so much you can learn from other people if you just stop expecting everything to serve you and everything to be about you and everything to be easy and fun and like it's something that you pay for, like a subscription or something like that. All that to say, please do not mistake men's, friendship standards for a good benchmark of what friendship is. Friendships are not supposed to be uncomplicated and easy. You always agree on everything because you have bro code and you're just not going to say your opinion. I feel like that's where a lot of people struggle with the concept of friendship, where it's like, but it's not easy, but it's not supposed to be. Of course, it's a problem if everything is complicated and everything is difficult in a friendship. But the reason that most people say that they're not good at friendships is because they view them outside of the category of relationships. It's just always supposed to be a fun and easy and lighthearted thing. And that's not the case. Another thing to think about when you say like you're not good at friendships or whatever is in what ways are you acting like a man? In what ways are you acting in ways that men have normalized acting in a friendship? In what ways are you inconsiderate? In what ways do you take up somebody else's time way too much? In what ways are you basically just in it to get your needs met and you discard people as soon as they're not meeting your needs? Or on the flip side, in what ways are you not noticing that you're doing way too much for somebody who couldn't care less, for somebody who wouldn't come through for you in the same way? And how can you address that? Or how can you sort of exit safely out of that situation? Those are not safe people if they're okay just taking and taking and taking while all you do is give. You need to examine the ways in which patriarchy has rotted your brain and rotted your ability to relate to other people in a way that is helpful and considerate. There's two sides of that coin, right? You may be doing too much or you may be taking too much. What ways are you holding back, opinions? In what ways are you enabling somebody's behavior? Because again, somebody who allows you to enable their behavior is a fair weather friend. They're not going to be there when you confront them about, hey, I don't want to enable this anymore, or I think what you're doing is wrong. They're probably just going to dip out. And that's again, another very patriarchal thing. Like, oh, you don't like it, then you can leave. Oh, you don't like me? Well, I'll take myself somewhere else. A lot of nuance, that can be brought into a friendship if you are willing to sit with it, if you're willing to sit in the gray areas, if you're willing to talk things out. Friendships are not just a dumping ground for two people. A lot of what ruins women's friendships is the patriarchy, because a lot of women are brainwashed by the patriarchy. You just need to take responsibility for the friendships that you're willing to stay in and how you want to conduct yourself when it comes to having friendships. And you need to set those boundaries and you need to let people know, like, hey, this is where I stand. If I don't agree with something, I'm going to speak up. And if you can't handle that, then that's okay. But we don't need to be friends, because I would rather not invest a bunch of time up front and just have you dump me as a friend when I tell you that what your boyfriend's doing is not normal. When you come to complain to me about it and I tell you to break up with him, I don't want that to be the end of our friendship, because you are so patriarchy minded that having a man in your life is more important than a friendship that you may have had for months or years. Because honestly, this is like the one and only thing that stands in the way of women's friendships, is because we're all affected disproportionately by men's actions, by the patriarchy, and the fact that the patriarchy allows them to get away with so much, and the fact that the patriarchy makes it seem like men are a prize, and you're not just going to find 20 of them on the same street corner that's going to treat you the same exact way as the man you're complaining about. Like, you can literally have a man do that to you as many times as you want. They're out there. But again, because the patriarchy is so prevalent, it has made it seem like other women are less important than some random man. This is why I tell you guys, like, stay away from those boy crazy women. If a friend gets a boyfriend or whatever, and all of a sudden it's like they fell off the face of the earth, you can just lay that one to rest right then and there. And it's okay to have like a vetting process in friendships too. You're not stuck. You're not stuck just because you said to this person like, oh, we're friends. You're not stuck. You can still respectfully be like, hey, the fact that, I'm only a priority to you when you're lonely makes me feel like shit, and I'm not going to stay in a relationship or a friendship that makes me feel like shit. Your actions are a direct reflection of who you are inside. All good and well that you were so nice to me and we were such good friends while you didn't have a man, but now that he has become like such an instant priority to you, I know where your priorities have always laid. And that's not the kind of friendship that I want. That would be my advice. My biggest advice is don't let the patriarchy tell you how things should be. Trust your intuition, trust your gut instincts, be honest with people, vet your friends. Because if you don't do that, that's the recipe for painful falling out in the future, or just like getting ghosted or whatever. And yeah, not a lot of people can handle a real friendship. Just like there's not a lot of men out there that are worth being in a relationship with. So many of us, even women, are so brainwashed by the patriarchy that they're not worth being friends with. So just keep that in mind and stay safe out there. Godspeed. I love you. I honestly think that one of life's greatest disappointments as a woman is realizing the kind of relationship that men actually want with you. Because you're really walking through life as a woman thinking that every man even has the capacity to meet your relational needs. And if you're lucky enough, you'll realize that 95, if not more percent of them don't. They don't have the capacity to meet your relational expectations. They cannot meet you where you are at with your relational skills because theirs are down here. Their relational skills are basic and simple. Their relational skills extend to 1 or 2 out of 10. Because for most men, relating to someone is a very narcissistic pursuit, right? They're like, do you have my same interests? That's the only question that they ever want to ask of other people. Not like, oh, what makes you different? Or what can I learn from you? Any kind of curiosity towards anything else, really. It's literally like, do we like the same video games? No, then we can't hang out. Do we play the same sport? No, then we can't hang out. They're very cliquey, actually, because their relational skills extend to, do you like what I like? Not only that, but men a lot of times tend to only view other men even as human beings. So like, even with that being said, the way that they relate to other men is still going to be better than the way that they relate to you, if you can believe it. They don't even think that you're like a real person most of the time. They think you're just like an appliance that they have to charm, and then it's just going to work like clockwork for the rest of their life, doing all of their dirty work and pumping out their children. They actually expect to treat you worse than they treat the men that they have something in common with, which is the extent to which they can relate to those men. It is the extent. This is why we have a male loneliness epidemic. This is why men are like, nobody gives us compliments. We're lonely and nobody wants to talk to us and it's so hard to make friends because y'all are simple and basic. The patriarchy has taken things from you and you don't care. You don't fight to get those back because you'd rather just be the top dog at the top of the food chain. And it's actually like a really big price to pay because it comes at the cost of your self-development, self-fulfillment even. Because most men are really just chasing the next achievement, whether it's like in real life or a video game or a porn site or whatever. Like they're just chasing their next high, their next dopamine hit. And once things start to get too serious or too complicated, they want to throw in the towel right away because they haven't gone through the self-development of being taught radical responsibility like women, because women are taught that everything that happens to them is their own fault, and if they didn't want this to happen, then they shouldn't have done this, and this. So women are constantly analyzing like, where can I grow? Where can I improve? What can I do to not be blamed next time? Hint, it's nothing. Still, women take so many more opportunities for personal, professional, academic growth than men. And again, we have data for this. Even though women are very heavily kept down in the workplace, not respected in the workplace, they're starting to make up the majority of it, and they do better in leadership positions precisely because of this, because they are not simple and basic. They're not taught to be simple and basic. They're taught to take full responsibility for themselves and for the men and women and children around them as well. So realizing what a man really wants from you is like soul crushing as a woman, because this whole time you've been prepared for, yeah, like marriage is going to be hard, but it's so worth it. And like relationships with men, like, yeah, they're hard, but like, we just love them so much. And you are over here thinking that means actually something really deep and special. And like, you guys are actually going to work on things. No, the reason that marriage is hard for a lot of women is because their husbands are simple and basic. They can't work on things. They can't be criticized. They hate self-reflection. They hate growth. They hate radical responsibility. They want to externalize everything and put it on others. A lot of men will be like, yeah, I cheated on you because all you do is nag me all the time. And like, this girl was telling me that I was really cool. Like, simple and basic. It's because he knows that there's truth to your nagging. But instead of actually changing, staying and changing and accepting that responsibility, he's going to go charm the next appliance, who now he has, at least 3 to 5 years of her thinking that he's really cool and her trying to cultivate some kind of like deep relationship with him by being understanding, deflecting, and sweeping shit under the rug. Eventually, she's going to get sick of his shit too. And again, when she realizes that he never planned to grow or take responsibility for anything ever, that all of those freebies were not just freebies for him, they were just, that's how he expects to be treated. Like, he's going to get pissed and start nagging him too. And then guess what he's going to do? He's going to go and find somebody even younger who doesn't know how the world works, and he's going to charm them into another 3 to 5 years. This is the cycle of a lot of men because they are so committed to staying stuck exactly where they're at. Simple and basic. That's why, ladies, most men are a waste of your time. The moment that they start acting selfish, the moment that they start, deflecting, wanting to sweep shit under the rug, trying to nag you into playing cool girl, stop. Because they will throw in the towel immediately. If you don't just immediately lay yourself out as a little mat and let them walk all over you, they're just gonna throw in the towel and be like, that girl was a bitch. She was absolutely crazy. She was such a psycho. Rather be that than a man's footstool. Stay safe out there. I love you so much. Godspeed.
Here's some book recommendations from every single genre. If I miss a genre and you make it your full-time job to point that out, you are not a friend, you are a foe. Starting off, we have memoirs. A couple months ago, I read Loud by Drew Afualo. This is for the pick-me's of the world. I do hate to say, but it's true. She is teaching you how to become a woman who centers herself and decenters men. Moving on to just general nonfiction, we have John Green's The Anthropocene Reviewed. I never stop talking about this book because I think it is the best collection of essays I've ever read. To sum it up, this is just a book about the human condition through John Green's lens. Also really loved Cultish by Amanda Montell. As somebody who's very interested in the concept of cults, I listened to the audiobook. Stellar. Moving on to women's fiction. Just Last Night by Vari McFarlane. Some people will probably describe this as somewhere between women's fiction and romance. That's how I would describe it. But I will say it leans more towards women's fiction for sure. This book is devastating. Follows a group of friends. Very, very bad thing happens one night. Literally on page like 80 something, you're gonna be like, am I really about to cry on page 80 something of this book? The answer is yes. Fantasy, we have a couple recommendations. The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is one of the best high fantasy books I've ever read. Part of a trilogy, I need to chop and get to the rest of the books. This is very end of the world, apocalyptic, natural disaster-esque with some magic. Vicious by V.E. Schwab is also another great one. It's also Dark Academia, basically about two guys who are trying to figure out how supernatural abilities occur. For YA fantasy, Legend Born by Tracy Dion. This will never not be my rec for a YA fantasy. Definitely more on the mature end of YA. It's also a very unique take on Arthurian lore. It's Dark Academia, secret societies, everything you could ask for in a fantasy book and more. Now, I don't read a lot of horror, okay, but I am in the middle of This Wretched Valley by Jenny Kiefer, and I'm actually enjoying it. So I'm gonna consider this a recommendation. Sorry, I'm not really a horror girl. I've only read a couple of horror books. It also constitutes as like a mystery. So it's gonna go all under that umbrella because I don't read a lot of mystery either. Sorry! For sci-fi / dystopian, we're gonna go Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. This book is going to haunt you because it's set in our present day, but it was written like 30 years prior. So you're gonna be like, ma'am, are you a psychic? The answer is yes, she is. Just like a world ravaged by climate change and economic crises and how this one 15-year-old girl has this condition called hyperempathy. Very interesting storytelling. It's a super powerful story. Like, I was like, ugh, when I finished it, ew, but like in a good way. Also, The Ministry of Time by Callie Ann Bradley. This is more time travel. There's some romance in there. About a government agency who brings people from the past to see how they survive in present day. I loved this book. For romance, you're not gonna get anything new with me. Beach Read by Emily Henry is my favorite romance book. If not this, then Happy Place by Emily Henry. The reason why I always will recommend her is because the people that I know that I've recommended her books to that don't like romance love her books. For Litfic, Sally Rooney's Beautiful World, Where Are You? Sally Rooney writes equally infuriating and relatable characters. They're almost so pretentious to the point where you're like, I hate you, but you're also like, I get it. Still need to read Intermezzo though. Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This is a literary thriller, okay? The main character in this is so insufferable. She's a terrifying individual. You never know what she's gonna do next. June, When I Catch You, June. Oh my god. I think I covered like basically everything. Hope that helps.
Was like, is this something that just happened over time? He was like, no, I was never attracted to you. He was like, even on our first date, he wasn't attracted to me. And he was like, oh, so many people think you're so attractive, so I just thought it would grow over time. And I have a pretty face. He was like, oh, you used to be a model. Like, I just thought that, like, I could, like, get over it. And it's, like, just shocking to hear that someone needs to get over the way your body looks.
First off, my heart goes out to this creator. Holy crap, what a horrible thing to go through. But what I want to talk about in regards to this is it's so interesting to see the other side of like dating for clout.
A very common discussion in the plus size community is about the men who will date plus size women in secret, or who will sleep with them but will not date them. And they will instead, even if they very specifically are attracted to a fatter body type, they will date the women that will get, support from their bros, that won't get weird looks if they walk down the street together, that will get them more social clout. And it feels like that is exactly what's happened here. This man dates her because she used to be a model and she's got a pretty face. And so the actual attraction, it'll just come, right? Because objectively, she's good looking, and it's worth it to him to stick around and to carry out this whole relationship with somebody he's not really attracted to because of how it makes him look to be dating a model. But this is very interesting, knowing that fat people get so many of this type of comment. Oh, you have a pretty face. It's just your body that I'm just not attracted to. Sorry, I'm just not attracted. I was hoping I could get over it, but I can't. I'm just not attracted. Like, this is something that fat people hear all the time. And so for someone who is a size 4 model to hear it is wild, because I think with fat people, it's more often like used as the reason for rejecting somebody and not dating them at all, which is fine. I mean, really, it's like you're allowed to not want to date someone. You're allowed to not be attracted to someone. But in this scenario, for him to feel those things, and he didn't say it because he wanted to get that clout of dating a model, of dating somebody he knows is objectively pretty, even if it doesn't really do it for him, he knows other people are going to look at him with her and say, damn, he got that pretty girl. It's so dehumanizing. It's unbelievably mean and cruel, because what's cruel is not simply not being attracted to someone. What's cruel is stringing them along anyway because you want what being with them gets you in terms of clout and respect from other people. And so ultimately you use them to build your entire relationship on a lie. And the fact that this happens to a beautiful woman, a size 4 woman, a model, an influencer, someone who is objectively gorgeous, even according to the man who freaking did it to her, there's no protecting yourself. There's no becoming so attractive that shit doesn't get done to you. And, this for sure reminded me of that.
Okay. The guy who played Zeke for Wizards of Waverly Place has an OnlyFans. He posts a lot of content, full nudity, like on his Twitter regularly. There's a new Wizards of Waverly Place show out, right? And David Henry was doing an interview with 4 or 5 of the kids that are on the show. And in the interview, it was like, which of these reoccurring characters would you love to have back on the show? And they had Zeke as one of them. David Henry goes, I'm actually surprised you have one of these people on here. And then a couple of the kids laugh. These are kids, and the kids know. The kids know, and they're like, oh. And then he like goes through reading them, and he's like, Zeke? And then that's it. People shared it on Twitter or whatever, and they were like, David Henry shades, I think his name's Dan, for doing OnlyFans. First of all, no, he didn't. Second of all, feel how you want about David Henry. I don't know any of his beliefs. And feel how you want about sex work. Pro sex work. Do what you want. But the guy who played Zeke then went on to say, like, David Henry can suck my fat, or I don't know if he said fat, but can suck my blank. He'd probably make more money than he is on Disney anyways. Then David Henry blocks him, and he posts that, and then he posts a full frontal picture on his Twitter, and it's like, anyways, my thing is, if you're siding with him at all on that, it's odd. And I'm not saying he's a bad person, but you used to be on a children's show, and now if children watch something that you are a part of, and they go and search you, they have full access to seeing you in that way. And yes, parents should monitor their shit, but they're maybe not. And that's okay, like, you can make all the choices that you want. But I agree with David in the sense that they shouldn't have even had Zeke as an option on there, because if children watch this interview, or the fact that the children around him already knew that he was an OnlyFans star, like, there should be no space for someone who posts just fully in a kid's world and universe. So I agree with David, they shouldn't have even had him as an option on there, because if kids watch that, they'll be like, oh, which one was Zeke? Look him up. And they could find very inappropriate pictures very easily online. Again, I'm pro sex work. Get your bag. Do OnlyFans. But, like, understand why you shouldn't have space in a children's show, like, anything. Interviews, anything.